You ever wonder how an investor can just look at a property and tell if it's a good deal or not? In most cases, they're probably using a rule of thumb that is really simple to use. Today, we're gonna cover two rules that you must know as a beginner real estate investor: the 1% rule and the 50% rule. This way, you can start telling if a property is a good deal within the matter of seconds. Before we talk about the actual rules, I have to explain two things first that'll help you understand both of the rules a little bit better and understand why you need to use them. First, I want us to remember what our goal is when we're buying a rental property. We're looking for a house that will make us monthly profit. So what we're going to be looking for here are which houses can actually give us more profit. But how do you tell which houses make more profit? Profit on an investment property is known as cash flow. Cash flow is just the income you make from a property minus the cost that you have to pay every single month. Whatever's left over after you've taken the rent in and paid down all of your expenses, that's your profit. For example, if a house costs $1,000, but it costs you about $600 every single month to run the house, like pay for the mortgage, the taxes, the insurance, all of that, then you will end up with a $400 a month profit. 1,000 minus 600. The second thing to keep in mind is that these rules are not perfect. You can find a property that meets both of these rules, but they still don't end up being a good investment. Always, before you're about to make an offer on a property, do a full analysis to make sure that the property is actually a good deal. Never, ever, ever buy a property just based on one of these rules. Instead, we want to use these rules as a quick way to eliminate a lot of bad properties that are going to come your way. For example, if a property doesn't meet the 1% rule, I don't even bother going to see it. But if it does, I will go see it. Okay, so let's talk about the first rule, the 1% rule. Like I mentioned, this is one of the first things I do when I'm looking at properties online. The 1% rule says that in order for a house to be profitable, the monthly rent must be 1% of the purchase price of the house. So for example, if you're gonna buy a $100,000 house, in order for that house to be profitable, it needs to rent for about $1,000 per month. If that same house rented for $800 per month, then 800 divided by 100,000 is 0.8%. So it would not meet the 1% rule. Anything below 1% usually means it's not a good deal. And anything 1% or above usually means it's a good deal to look a little bit farther. Another example would be if I bought a house that rented for $2,000 per month and I bought it at $100,000. That'd be a 2% rule property. That's good. Okay, now right off the bat, I can see a lot of you complaining about this. Antonio, not a single home where I live meets the 1% rule. That is not a real thing. If you can't find a house in your area that meets the 1% rule, that means you're looking in the wrong areas. You should start looking in a different city like I've been talking about all along. And don't get me wrong, I used to think the 1% rule was hard to meet too. When I started off, I was living in New York City and every property costs like $800,000 and can only rent for like $2,000, $4,000 a month. That is the 0.5% rule. Not a single property meets the 1% rule. So I just thought the rule was broken. But then once I started lifting my head out of my and I started looking in other cities around the US, I realized I could find other properties that had the 1% rule, some even meeting the 2% rule. As you can see, this method is really good for quickly being able to tell if a rental property can be a good deal or not. The second rule of thumb that we're going to be talking about is known as the 50% rule. The 50% rule states that on average, a house will have operating expenses that will add up to about 50% of all of the rent that a house will make. Operating expenses are everything that costs you inside the house except your mortgage payment. So it's things like the taxes, the insurance, the property management, the utilities, savings for things like repairs and capital expenditures and vacancy. The formula for the 50% rule is the rent divided by 2 minus the mortgage equals your profit. In order to know how much your mortgage payment's gonna be, you need to know how much the purchase price of the house is gonna be and what kind of loan you're gonna use. So let's say you're buying a house that is $100,000 and you're gonna put 25% down because it's a small multifamily. That means you'll have a loan balance of $75,000. Let's assume you take that out at a 4% interest rate. That means your monthly mortgage payment will be $360 about. If the house rents for $2,000, that means your operating expenses, according to the 50% rule, is going to be half of that at $1,000. And the mortgage is $360. So we have $2,000 minus $1,000 minus $360 equals $640 per month. That's what our profit will be according to the 50% rule. Now, after that quick calculation, I might go see the property or go home and fully analyze it to see if it really will make me that much money. The 50% rule is a little bit more complex than the 1% rule, but it can give you a little bit more accurate of an answer because you're actually getting an actual number of how much money you'll make, and it's using your mortgage payment into consideration because you and I might have two different mortgage payments, and that can severely change what our profit will be every single month. Now you should go try these on a property that you got. If you want to learn all of the steps to buy your first rental property in a complete video breakdown, then click the video on screen right now to go over and watch that. I'll see you over there.